Discover the culture behind Chinese characters, a guide to ancient Chinese philosophy. In modern Chinese, the character zi usually means child or serves as a common suffix. But in ancient China, zi was an honorific title, similar to master or philosopher. During the Spring and Autumn and Warring States periods, roughly from the 6th to the 3rd century BCE, China went through one of the most intellectually creative ages in its history. This was the age of the 100 schools of thought, a time when philosophers openly debated politics, ethics, war, human nature, and the ideal society. Only the most influential thinkers, those who founded their own schools, taught disciples, and left works that shaped Chinese civilization for centuries, came to be remembered with the title Zi. If Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle had lived in ancient China, people might have called them Su Zi, Bala Zi, and Ya Zi. Today, we're going to meet 6 of the most famous masters in Chinese history: Kongzi, Laozi, Zhuangzi, Mozi, Han Feizi, Sunzi. They were not just philosophers. They were also teachers, political thinkers, strategists, and social critics. Their ideas shaped the Chinese way of thinking about morality, government, society, and life itself, and their influence is still alive today. The first is the most famous Chinese philosopher of all, Confucius, Kongzi. Kongzi lived from about 551 BCE to 479 BCE and was born in what is now Shandong province. Kongzi came from a relatively modest background. When he was young, he held minor administrative jobs, including work related to storehouses and livestock. Later, he founded a private school and began teaching students, accepting anyone regardless of wealth or social status, as long as they could offer a small bundle of dried meat as tuition. At the time, this was radical. Education had long been reserved for the aristocracy. He founded Confucianism, one of the most influential philosophical traditions in Chinese history. Confucius himself never wrote any books. His ideas were compiled by his disciples and followers. The most important texts associated with him include 《论语》, a record of conversations between Confucius and his students. It is the most direct source for understanding Confucius's thought, somewhat resembling the Greek records of Socrates' dialogues. 六经, the 6 texts, the core texts of early Confucian learning: 诗, 书, 礼, 乐, 易, 春秋, cover poetry, politics, ritual, philosophy, history, and art. For a long time, they served as 6 textbooks and became the core classics of ancient Chinese culture. For over 2,000 years, Confucius's ideas formed the foundation of Chinese education and government. To a certain extent, he defined what it means to be a good person in Chinese culture. For example, he said, 己所不欲，勿施于人, means do not impose on others what you do not desire for yourself. In other words, if you would not want something done to you, do not do it to others. It is a call for empathy, self-restraint, and moral responsibility. Confucius is a little like Aristotle, practical, ethical, grounded in everyday life, and deeply concerned with how human beings should live well. The second thinker is Laozi. Laozi lived approximately 100 years before Confucius, around the 6th to 5th century BCE. His life is shrouded in mystery. Laozi once worked as an archivist for the Zhou royal court, something like a keeper of the state archives. In his old age, disillusioned by the decline of the world around him, he decided to leave civilization behind and head west into seclusion. At the frontier pass, a guard recognized him and begged him to leave behind his wisdom before disappearing. So he wrote a short book of around 5,000 characters. That book is Dao De Jing. Then, according to legend, he rode away on an ox and vanished from history. Whether this story is literally true or not, it perfectly captures his image, a mysterious sage who speaks little, sees deeply, and leaves the world behind. Dao De Jing is the only work traditionally attributed to Lao Tzu, and this book became the most famous philosophical work in Chinese history. It articulates a distinctly Eastern philosophy that profoundly influenced Chinese civilization and thought for over 2,000 years. We can understand the core ideas of Dao De Jing from 4 key ideas. Dao is the central concept in philosophy of Lao Tzu. It is invisible and intangible, yet it is the origin of all things and the principle by which they operate. 道可道, 非常道, meaning that the way, if it can be put into words, is not the true unchanging way. 无为 is the methodology of Lao Tzu. Wu means without. Wei means action. Wu wei does not mean doing nothing at all, but rather not forcing things. It means following the natural course of things, not imposing human will to interfere and distort. 柔弱胜刚强. Lao Tzu believed that what appears soft often has more vitality than what appears hard. Water is the softest thing, yet it can wear away stone. When teeth fall out, the tongue remains. He advocated overcoming hardness with softness, which became an important part of Chinese practical philosophy. 小国寡民. This was his vision of an ideal society. Small states with small populations, where people live peacefully. Neighbor states can see each other, but there is no interference between them. This is a social ideal of returning to nature and staying away from conflict. Lao Tzu can be seen as a kind of Eastern mystic. His thought shares similarities with Heraclitus, profound, paradoxical, and emphasizing the rhythms and changes of nature. The third, Zhuangzi, lived approximately from 369 BCE to 286 BCE. He held only one minor official position in his life, serving as a small clerk managing a lacquer tree plantation. Later, he resigned and lived a simple, impoverished life. Once, a king sent an envoy to invite him to become a high official. He didn't even turn his head and said, "I've heard that the king has a sacred tortoise that died 3,000 years ago. The king keeps it in a box, enshrined and worshipped. Now, would this tortoise rather be dead and have its bones venerated, or would it rather be alive and drag its tail through the mud?" The envoy replied, "It would rather be alive and drag its tail through the mud." Zhuangzi said, "Then you may leave. I prefer to drag my tail through the mud." This story best illustrates his character. He did not want power. He only wanted freedom. Zhuangzi was a thinker who kept his distance from worldly affairs. He left behind one philosophical work, Zhuangzi. This book contains 33 chapters. It is generally believed that 7 of these chapters were written by himself, while the rest were added by his disciples and later scholars. This book is not only a philosophical work, it is also one of the greatest collections of prose in Chinese literary history. The most famous story of Zhuangzi is Zhuangzhou Mengdie. One day he dreamed that he became a butterfly, fluttering about freely and happily. When he woke up, he could no longer tell whether he was Zhuangzhou, who had dreamed of being a butterfly, or a butterfly now dreaming of being Zhuangzhou. Through this dream, he raises a profound question: are reality and the self truly fixed, or are they simply part of an ever-changing process? He is somewhat like Diogenes, an unconventional philosopher who cared nothing for power and status and pursued spiritual freedom with profound depth. The fourth, Mozi. Mozi lived approximately from 480 BCE to 390 BCE. He is often associated with craftsmanship, engineering, and practical knowledge. He founded a school called Mojia, which was a very distinctive group. It had strict discipline. Members wore short clothes and straw sandals, endured hardship, and were called Mojia. The leader of the Moists was called the Jizi, the Grand Master, and Mozi was the first Jizi. Mojia were not only philosophers, but also engineers and military strategists. They specialized in helping small and weak states defend themselves against aggression from larger states. Mozi was like the founder of a great organization. He established the earliest organized private philanthropic group in Chinese history. Mojia advocated universal love, meaning loving all people equally, without distinction between relatives and strangers, loving others as one loves oneself. If everyone could do this, there would be no wars or conflicts in the world. However, in a feudal and hierarchical society, this idea of equality among all people frightened the ruling class. So Mojia gradually faded from history. But whenever Mojia is mentioned, it commands respect and admiration. The fifth, Han Feizi. Han Feizi lived approximately from 280 BCE to 233 BCE. He was a nobleman of the state of Han during the Warring States period. He was one of the most systematic and clear-headed theorists of power and governance in Chinese history. He advocated governing the state through law. He had a stutter, but was a brilliant writer. His work, the Han Feizi, consists of 55 chapters totaling over 100,000 characters. This is the culmination of legalist thought, covering politics, law, history, philosophy, and many other fields. His thought can be summarized in 3 words: fa, the law, shu, the methods, and shu, the power. These 3 concepts later became the core theories of governance for Chinese rulers. Fa, the law. Han Feizi believed that governing a state required public, systematic laws. Laws should be clearly proclaimed so that everyone knows them. All people should be equal before the law. But he notably excluded the ruler from this equality, which was a flaw of early legalism. Shu, methods, were the means by which the ruler managed his ministers. This was a secret that the ruler could not reveal. Han Feizi believed the ruler should not let his ministers see through his thoughts. He needed to maintain an air of mystery and use various techniques to test the loyalty and competence of his ministers. While useful to the ruler, these methods were somewhat underhanded. Shu, the power. This referred to the ruler's authority and majesty. He believed the ruler must have absolute authority to implement the law. The ideas of Han Feizi were highly esteemed by ancient Chinese emperors because they proved useful for governing subjects and the state. However, these ideas have largely been rejected by modern thought. In a fate that mirrored his philosophy, he was ultimately killed through conspiracy. He is considered ancient China's most famous proponent of statecraft and intrigue, yet he also laid the foundation for governance through law. The sixth, Sun Tzu, the famous strategist. Sun Tzu lived approximately from 545 BCE to 470 BCE. He was a military strategist. You have probably heard of his famous work, Sun Tzu Bing Fa, The Art of War. 孙子兵法 contains about 6,000 characters divided into 13 chapters. Each chapter addresses a strategic theme with rigorous logic and interlocking concepts. This book is not only a military classic, but also one of the most influential works on strategy in the world. This book has been translated into dozens of languages and remains a global bestseller. It was one of the earliest Chinese classics to reach the world and influence global thought. Let me briefly introduce some concepts from The Art of War. 不战而屈人之兵 means to subdue the enemy without fighting is the highest excellence. This is the highest ideal of Sun Tzu. He believed the best victory is winning without fighting, making the opponent surrender through deterrence, diplomacy, and intelligence. 知己知彼，百战不殆 means know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. This is the most famous saying of Sun Tzu. It emphasizes the importance of intelligence. War cannot rely on guesswork, but requires accurate assessment. 先胜而后求战 means victorious warriors win first and then go to war. Sun Tzu believed victory is not achieved through fighting, but through calculation. Before engaging in battle, one must calculate and ensure a high probability of victory before fighting. He said, 胜兵先胜而后求战，败兵先战而后求胜 means the victorious army first ensures victory and then seeks battle. The defeated army first engages in battle and then seeks victory. 兵者诡道也 Sun Tzu said that war by its nature involves deception. When capable of attacking, pretend to be unable. When about to act, pretend to be inactive. When near, make the enemy think you are far. When far, make them think you are near. Use all kinds of false appearances to confuse the enemy, then strike unexpectedly. Pretty interesting, don't you think? For over 2,000 years, both Chinese generals and foreign military strategists have studied the ideas of Sun Tzu. President Ronald Reagan directly quoted him, "To fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting." In his 1981 commencement address at West Point, President Reagan used this statement to illustrate the logic that a strong military can prevent war. These 6 individuals have had a profound and lasting influence on Eastern civilization. Their ideas have become deeply ingrained in Chinese culture. Thus, Zi is not just an honorific title, it is a symbol. It symbolizes an era, a great age of intellectual freedom and 100 schools of thought. In that era, one could openly criticize the king, refuse official positions, establish one's own school of thought, and debate with those in power. Such intellectual freedom, though rare in later Chinese history, produced achievements that nourished China for 2,000 years. They taught us, what kind of person should you become? What kind of life should you live? Kongzi gave us 仁, benevolence, to be a moral person. Lao Tzu gave us 道, the way, to be a person who follows nature. Zhuangzi gave us 自由, freedom, to be a person of spiritual independence. Mozi gave us 兼爱, universal love, to be a person who benefits others. Han Fei Zi gave us 法, rules, to be a person of rationality and pragmatism. Sun Tzu gave us 智慧, wisdom, to be a person who understands strategy. These ideas have shaped the way Chinese people think, behave, and make moral judgments. They have become the foundation of Chinese civilization, the timeless essence of this ancient Eastern culture. So, among these 6 great masters, which one resonates with you? Discover the culture behind Chinese characters. See you next time.